He is the only heavyweight champion to have retired undefeated, the only heavyweight champion to have stopped every challenger to his title. He holds one of the highest career knockout to win ratios across heavyweight history at 87.8%. He's one of the hardest hitters in heavyweight history. In retrospect, he had the impossible task of succeeding Joe Louis and preceding Muhammad Ali as the People's Champion while acting as the de facto Great White Hope for America. And he did all of this with limited physical attributes that forced him to become arguably the hardest working man in boxing, next to Joe Frazier, of course. His work rate built stamina, together with his punching power and exceptional chin, yielded one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. So the question must be posed, as it is for every fighter I spotlight. What was the best year of Rocky Marciano's career? 1951 through 1955 was so stellar a stretch for The Rock that my job requires I look at each in detail. In 1951, Rocky fought 7 times with all but one bout ending by knockout. 3 fighters were notable, the first being Willis "Red" Applegate, who went the distance and retired the same year due to a detached retina. Rex Lane had beaten Ezzard Charles and Jersey Joe Walcott earlier on. Marciano knocked him out in 6, the knockout punch sending 4 of Lane's upper front teeth out of the ring along with his mouthpiece. The last name needs no introduction. Joe Louis may have been
75 years old, 76 years old, 137 years old.
But he was still formidable, having reeled off 8 straight wins after the Charles loss. Marciano finished Louis in 8 rounds and sent him into permanent retirement. In 1952, Rocky fought 5 times with none going the distance. Lee Savold holds the distinction of having the most overall fights and losses for a heavyweight champion, and fought such names as Buddy Bear and Joe Louis. In his career finale, Marciano finished him in 6. Harry "Kid" Matthews had compiled an undefeated streak since returning from World War II. He had also beaten Al Hostock, Bob Murphy, and Ezzard Charles across weight classes. Marciano ended him in 2 rounds in what would be Rocky's final tune-up before challenging for the world title 2 months later. Rocky's final conquest on the year also needs no introduction. Jersey Joe was the oldest heavyweight champion ever and swore he would squash the hype job. Instead, it was the Susie Q, arguably the hardest punch ever thrown, that terminated Walcott's reign, as Rocky scored the comeback knockout to become the new heavyweight champion of the world. What a way to end the year. In 1953, he fought 2 essential bouts, both rematches that stamped his greatness. The first was a first-round knockout of the former champion Jersey Joe Walcott. The second was against Roland Lastarza, whom Rocky had beaten by split decision 3 years earlier. This time around, Marciano stopped Lastarza in the 11th after initially being outboxed and refining his style mid-fight to execute a beatdown. The year proved the Brockton Blockbuster was no fluke. In 1954, history received the amazing Marciano-Charles duology. The first went the distance, with Marciano getting the unanimous decision over Charles in a 15-round no-give war. The rematch, 3 months later, saw Marciano knock out Charles in the 8th round in desperation after Charles had split his nose. If he hadn't finished Charles right then, the doctor would have stopped the fight soon after. In 1955, Rocky rounded out his career with 2 final bouts. The first was against contender Don Cockle, who had defeated a number of top heavyweights. After 9 rounds and 3 knockdowns of punishment, one of which saw Don get sent through the ropes, the referee stopped the bout in favor of Marciano. Rocky's career finale was against the old mongoose, who was looking to become the oldest heavyweight champion ever, alongside becoming the first reigning light heavyweight champion to capture the heavyweight title. After knocking The Rock down, Moore was floored 3 times and failed to answer the last in the 9th. Rocky hung up the gloves and his 49-0 record. He was 32 years old and got out of the game early, without a blemish. It may have been the best timing too, because the division was about to undergo a new evolution. So, 5 good years, but there can only be one best year. I'm ruling out 1951 on the grounds that Joe Louis is the lone marquee name and there are better contenders as far as wins and level of competition. 1952 gets the same judgment, though the Jersey Joe match was spectacular. 1955 was a brilliant curtain call, but as good as the Archie Moore comeback was, it isn't enough. We're down to 53 and 54, the year of vindication versus the year of trademark rivalry. Very tough decision, but ultimately, I'm going with 1954. Though Rocky proved himself in 53 by definitively beating men who'd once troubled him, he did the same in 54 against his career rival, showcasing the best of himself. He and Charles wound up becoming good friends after the duology, similar to Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield years later. The Brockton Blockbuster had a tremendous career, particularly in the 1950s, as its best fighter, and I believe 1954 was the best year in the flawless career of Rocky Marciano. Look no further than the entertainment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time as we shift from the People's Champion of the 50s to its greatest shadow, perhaps. Stay frosty.